Welcome to Playing with Fire, the podcast for people who are ready to custom build their love.
We're talking about non-monogamy, however you design it, as an individuation opportunity.
Want to leave the default and make your life spectacularly you? You're in the right place. Want to talk about envy?
I sure do.
Well, good. Nobody else does. I had somebody ask recently if we do an episode on envy. And we do have an episode on healing from jealousy and envy. We did it a while back, quite a while back. I think it's time to give envy its own show.
I think it comes up a lot and in a lot of different ways, and it's worth digging into.
Right. And, so jealousy is my primary area of academic research. And jealousy is about feeling this fear, this threat to a valued relationship by a perceived interrupter. But envy is a little different. And it's really important that we can tell the two apart. Envy is about longing to be what someone else is, to have what they have, to be able to do what they do. And in that way, like the perspective I was taught is that envy is a wound to the self. Envy is about not actually being okay with who you are as you are, wanting. So and that's really getting down to an archetypal envy state, like Cinderella and her stepsisters, right? Sometimes our envy is very light. It's very mundane, right? I envy those new shoes you got. I envy your car. I envy the fact that your children always wash the dishes after dinner. Really light, easy.
Right. And
sometimes it's destructive.
Right. And I want to throw in that I have heard in those light examples that you gave in particular, I've heard people say, jelly. I'm jelly of your shoes. Right.
Yeah.
And so they misuse the word jealousy in place of envy. And
we have collectively kind of just conflated these two terms. So we're pulling them back apart, which is really valuable because if we think about envy as a wound to the self versus jealousy, which is a wound to the relationship or the wound to the relational self, they're two different experiences, very different experiences, and they can happen at the same time. So we'll touch on that later in this episode, what happens when they show up at the same time. But if we stick with the definition of envy, and I like that feeling of longing. I long to be what you are, to have what you have, to do what you can do. Underneath all of that is often a really icky feeling, like a really yucky, horrible feeling. And this is why I think envy is deeply distasteful to many of us. It feels like it feels unfair. Something about what we're experiencing feels unfair. So if I just say, oh, I envy your shoes, and it's really on a very light, I envy them. Well, for one thing, I could go get those shoes.
Yeah, I want them and I don't have them. And I'm expressing that fact right now, and that I feel a way about the fact that I want them and I don't have them.
And in some people's lives and in some cultures, expressing envy is a huge compliment. That's in fact how you would compliment someone's shoes. In fact, I think we still do that. I don't know why I'm fixated on shoes. Oh, it's the Cinderella thing. It's the shoes.
Sure.
That's what made me think of it. So if I look at your glass slippers and I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, those are amazing. I so envy those shoes. Or if I say, I'm so jelly of your shoes, whatever. If what I mean is I wish I had them, it's also a compliment. I wouldn't wish I have them if it wasn't a compliment. But under a lot of the bigger envy, especially the envy that we don't name, but maybe we act out, is a profound sense of unfairness. The world is unfair.
Yeah. And that sounds like, I wish I had your shoes. Completely different. That's not a compliment.
Yeah. Yeah. Tone means everything there.
Yep.
But I think we should stick with this idea of unfairness.
Unfairness.
Because when we're feeling like we've been treated unfairly, like by the universe, it's a miserable experience. That does not feel good. And before we go any further, I want to just state sometimes it is unfair. Like life is unfair. There are also systemic unfairnesses built into our world systems, right? There's systemic oppression, nepotism, privileges of all sorts. So I want to be clear here that I'm not saying that you should never feel anything is unfair. I just want to point out that that sense, that felt sense of like, ugh, this feels unfair, could also point us in a direction of like, where do we go with envy? What do we do
Right.
next when we're
Yep.
in envy? Um, it's hard because when we're feeling a sense of unfairness, we often get very myopic. We're very fixated on like they have the thing, they got there, they've already achieved what I want, or they're already reaping the benefits of it. Like how did they do that? Doesn't even weigh into it. We don't
Yeah.
think about all that it took.
Yeah. All the actions they took, decisions they made that got them to this,
Or the luck they had.
or the luck. Yep.
Sometime plenty of
Again.
time. And maybe it's always some luck and some amazing decision and some hard work. I would never want to rule out just like, yeah, just well, statistically it was going to happen sometime and it happened then. When we're experiencing envy, there's an inherent comparison that has
Yeah.
entered our experience, right? Comparison is just right there. And, there's that phrase, comparison is the thief of joy. And it's a beautiful phrase that I hear people state as if stating it somehow was enough to
Yeah.
unplug us from our
Yeah.
habits of
Yep.
comparison. But humans are categorizers. Like we're constantly walking around and putting things into categories and noticing. Like we're pattern detectors. It's what we do. And so comparison feels completely normal, right? It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that wow, it makes things really uncomfortable
It's
because in
this,
fact things don't feel fair a
right.
lot of the time.
So it's the story that you tell about the comparison that
Ooh.
leads you to envy or joy or comparison or uh,
Or celebration for
entitlement.
the other. Oh, wait. Oh, okay, go there.
Yeah.
If
Because,
you take unfairness
yeah.
to the next level, then we have no, I should just have that.
Well,
I
that's
should be that way.
one of the things that I feel when I explore envy for myself. One of the least pleasant parts of it is that "why not me"
Hmm.
sentence. And underneath that, because of who I am, I know underneath that is entitlement. Hey, I should have that too, or instead sometimes. But that's all like noticing the entitlement that lives underneath that.
And I really appreciate that you just brought in entitlement, but also I want that too versus I want that and I'm willing I I would rather destroy what you have than
Mhm.
have you have it.
Yeah.
I this is where remember all those years ago
Mm.
when we were so naive. Oh no, I'm going to go past naive. We were just stupid.
Oh, I was
Just
stupid.
stupid and
Mhm.
wrong. Like just incorrect. Um way back at the beginning of Jolie time. No, at the beginning of our non-monogamy, we had the utterly brilliant idea collectively. We were in a triad at the time. This was I swear to God, you can't make this shit up.
Yeah.
We had the brilliant idea in the first like couple of months to decide that jealousy was just like it's just so it's so base. Just so we just won't.
So
Like,
we just won't.
because it would never be jealousy. We were conflating jealousy and envy all over the place. But we
Yeah.
decided that no. Envy comes up. Sure, I want to have that too is fine. But we had conflated jealousy with envy anyways because we thought that jealousy just meant I don't want you to have it. So we were just wrong because that's
Mhm,
not what
mhm.
jealousy is at all. And then on top of it, I really did. I really had to go to school for 11 and a half years to find my way out of that
To clear that one up.
disaster. Yeah.
Mhm.
But we also we totally fixated on the idea that envy was okay because envy was just about, I want to have this thing too, except that's completely overlooking the archetypal perspective. We watch people on a core level, and like the story of Cinderella and her stepsisters. Her stepsisters are willing to destroy things, including destroy their stepsister and destroy Cinderella, destroy her items, destroy her dress, destroy her what she had, rather than let her have it. That wasn't going to get them anything. That got them nothing. It's just destruction for envy's sake. Envy itself has this quality of, it has a destructive quality to it. And I love that we tried to somehow replace jealousy with envy, thinking it was better when, like, we were reading stories to the kids every day. Did we like miss that one?
Yeah, we're just
Feel
reading
pretty
them, not
silly right
thinking
now.
about them. Mm-hmm.
Really, really feel silly about that.
You know, you've mentioned envy being a wound to self, and in the original Cinderella, the stepsisters literally injure themselves
Yes.
in order to try to get to the ball.
Oh yeah, they're cutting off toes
They're
and cutting
cutting
off
off
heels.
toes, and
It's really gross. They want to fit in that glass slipper, and they're willing to like literally chop pieces of themselves off. Yes. So this is why one of my favorite books on envy is by Anne and Barry Ulanoff. It's Cinderella and Her Sisters, The Envied and the Envying. And I mean, it was a really helpful book for me because it helped me recognize that envy, that wound to the self that we're talking about, it is so destructive. It's destructive because it's not just that I locate out in the world, oh, I wish I were like that, and I use that as motivation. It's I locate this quality out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I judge myself as lacking. And frequently, rather than using it as motivation, instead, I further injure myself. I cut myself. I continually harm myself. And often the other as well.
Yeah.
When we're talking about unfairness, it makes me immediately think about like the way it feels to be a child and to feel like, especially when you're in that like 3 to 7 phase, when you're just like, everything should just be fair. And you're just like it just should. And then we start to grow up a little and we start to get wind that like, in fact, life isn't fair.
That's maybe not be how it is. Yeah.
And how infuriating it is.
Yeah.
That it's just not. There is no fairness. Like, it's really interesting to me when I think about the longing that I have. What do I long for? What do I long to be like? And how does that help me understand myself?
Yeah.
Because that's what I think envy is the best at. I think envy it's an amazing motivator, but it's also a great way for me to identify, where do I judge myself really harshly, like possibly to the point of self-destruction? Where do I feel so unfairly treated or so out of balance with what other people have that I'm now turning on myself? And envy, for a person who's practicing non-monogamy, envy may show up at the same time as jealousy. So if I'm experiencing the jealousy triangle, if I am the one who's envying and I'm the one who's jealous, so if there is, let's say, a metamor who has my partner's attention, we're both partnered to this person, we both find them to be beloved, but I feel that this person is possibly an interrupter to my relationship. Okay, so there's the jealousy, there's the triangle, me, valued other, and the interrupter. But if I also start judging myself in comparison to that perceived interrupter, now I've got envy. The envy at that point it can become completely overwhelming. We can get caught in a cycle of comparison that feels just almost outlandishly present. Like we're just constantly in a cycle of judgment, judging ourselves against another human, and often breaking both of us down into like parts. It's often not about the whole person, but about just a fragment of their humanity, a fragment of my humanity Like, what
Yeah,
does it
like
mean for someone to be prettier than, or better at sex than, um, or more interesting than? Like, what do these things mean?
that's really interesting. So the idea of um, I envy this particular piece of that person
Right.
isolates that particular piece out of them in
Yes.
the same way that earlier on you mentioned that envying someone something can often I would almost say always, but I'm just going to say often ignores the path they took to get to that thing entirely. So I like it's just this end state that I envy. I don't know anything about the path. So again, I've cut the experience into pieces. I've cut the story into pieces so that I just isolate the one that matters to me, focus on that. So I
Yes.
cut the person up into the piece that I want to look at, and I cut their experience up into just the piece I want to look at. It's a very oh shoot, what's the reductionist? It's very reductionist experience.
Right. I think that's it exactly. There's this cutting us all up into bits and pieces. There's a
Mm-hmm.
dehumanizing. There's a separation of the totality, right?
Yeah,
Humans, each human being, we're incommensurable. In fact,
yeah.
there's a great article about the incommensurability of humans on Marie Tuin's website, What is Compersion? It's just a really sweet piece about, like, remember, you like we there is no comparison point
Mm-hmm.
for a whole human. But envy counts on us chopping humans up into things we can
Comparable
label.
pieces. Yeah.
Yes, pieces and
Mm-hmm.
parts. So what if we think about, I'm going to make a ridiculous example. And if I say, oh, you know what? She's so much funnier than me. Right. Awesome. But her humor is it's just one piece of her whole package. I What does it mean for me to envy that? Am I really envying something she has, or am I envying something that I judge myself as not having? And there's
Mm-hmm.
a murky line in there. Is
Yeah.
it that I think I'm really funny, and so nobody should be funnier than me? Like, is that what my child self thinks?
Yeah.
Or is it actually like, I don't think I'm funny enough. I don't think I'm witty enough. I don't think that I'm entertaining enough. And so like sectioning off this piece and saying it's better than.
So somebody has highlighted for you a self judgment that you have that may or may
Yeah.
not be true, but this experience is highlighting it for you,
Yeah, and
and
I
you
think
can
it could
come
go
up with
either
envy.
way.
Mm-hmm.
It could go either way. It could be something you actually think you're awesome at and you can't believe that you're being
Mm-hmm.
outshone, or
Mm-hmm.
something that you really, really
Right.
judge as lacking.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
when envy shows up, now I'm caught in the comparison and the splintering off of the okay, we're gonna treat each other as if we're pieces and parts,
Mm-hmm.
and missing the fact that if there's something to be gained in envy, it would be that envy can point us in the direction of what we want.
Yeah.
A huge number of my clients, well, when we come into the year of opening, right away in week 2, we're talking about needs, wants, bottom line requirements, and boundaries. And when I ask people to talk about needs and wants, needs being high level, vague, things that you need for your life, and you can't do without. You're not willing yet. Nope, can't do without that. Things like trust, safety, kindness, like really core things. But our wants. How do you want to meet those needs? How do you want it to look? How do you want it to feel? What would it be? When I ask people to name their wants, they often completely, like, total freeze response or panic response will show up. For many people, they realize they have no idea what they want because they only ever allow themselves to want what's offered or what they think they can get
Yeah.
or what
Mm-hmm.
seems like it's socially appropriate. So they don't let themselves have wants just free floating. Envy is a way to get at our wants, right? It's pointing at them. Now, it might be pointing to a wound as well, right? If
Mm-hmm.
I think, wow, I really want to be funny. Do I want to be funny? Mm, that's kind of a maybe, but what's underneath that? I want to be entertaining. Okay, what's underneath that?
Yeah.
I want to be someone people want to hang out with. Okay, what's underneath that? I want to be wanted. I want to be desired. I want to be loved. I want to be in company. Okay. And
Now,
underneath all
yeah,
that was I want to feel longing. I want to feel belonging. I want to
belonging.
feel loved.
Yep.
And at the same time, I think that the surface level one is valuable, right? I want to be funny.
Hmm. Yeah, it's
I
your
could work on that. I
specificity.
could, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's my specificity.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I literally wanted to be funnier. So I went to improv classes and I went to stand up comedy classes. And like, I worked on it at one point in my life because I quite literally wanted that. That's what I thought I wanted. After I'd done it for a while, I was like, oh, I don't actually care about that. That was a thing I wanted, but only to a certain degree.
And so there's another a valuable feature of this envy. Oh, okay, I want that thing. Okay, well, I can't just suddenly have it. So let me do the things that are going to get me that. Along the way, you learn all kinds of. You may learn that absolutely I was right. These are things I love, and you may be like, oh, that is totally not worth it for me after all.
Yes. Oh, yeah. We were just listening to that. The ethicist that I follow from
Hmm. Oh yeah,
Amsterdam, I think she's in.
yeah,
And she said, remember that all the things you want, like doing those might create a life you don't want.
yeah,
it's it was an
yeah,
interesting it's an interesting spot check.
yeah,
Do I actually want to live the life?
yeah,
Because for me, it turned out, you know what? I don't want to be out at night, like doing the things to hone my skills of humor. But I did want to spend time with other grown-ups a lot. Like that was what I found out. And yet I know underneath all that the fear that I had, the comparison that comes up when I think like somebody else might be funnier or more entertaining to my valued others, the people I really love, it's still there, but it no longer subsumes me because I've
yeah.
gotten to know it better. I
Getting to
started
know
to
it,
get to know
right?
like,
It's not just your dream of it, your imagination.
yeah,
It's now got some practical facts.
what's something that you have envied in someone before?
Well, I'm gonna go real simple, straightforward, and capitalist. Money.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I have wanted to be a millionaire, which doesn't mean what it used to mean.
Right.
Um, so okay, maybe I want to
Yeah,
be a
that was in the
billionaire.
80s.
That was in the '80s, but now I can see from here what it takes to be a billionaire. I do not want to do those things, not at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
So,
So some maturity entered the picture
yep,
around, and when I'm saying maturity, I mean looking at not just the outcome, but the effort and the values and the commitment or
yeah,
lack thereof that you would have to make
yep,
underlying all of that in order to get a particular outcome.
yeah,
I think it's really interesting to when I enter into comparison mindset, when I catch myself into it, like I'm like, oh, I'm comparing myself because it
yeah,
happens all the time. Like, oh, I'm envying. Do I want all the stuff that they do to
yeah.
either to get there or to maintain it?
Yep, because
Do I want that?
I have a simpler example. I know someone who has a camera drone and they got their FAA license for it. They did all the things they needed to do and they fly it around and take pictures and they have some great things. It's like that sounds great. And I have not done that because in fact, I don't want to do those things right now. I don't want to take the steps necessary to make that happen.
Right. But you can still have the moments
But
of envy.
I still like I would like to have already done those things and have it.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that way about my writing. Like it feels like
Mhm.
I've never written enough to have done all the writing I wish I'd done, but I don't actually want to sit down to do my writing on any given day.
I have seen that it's a fairly well known fact of writing that nobody wants to write; they want to have written.
Apparently, very
I
common.
mean, I've seen that like from famous authors and whatnot, and they're all like, "Yeah, it's kind of hard." So how much, like, what are the actions that get there worth to you?
And
And this is, you can learn so much just by saying, "Oh, I really want that. Okay, let me think through what I would have to get that. Awesome or not, or these are all valuable pieces of information about
yeah.
who you are as a person."
Yeah, and some of the things really it is I think that envy and working with envy well is I find it to be really helpful individuation material.
Oh
Like
yeah.
starting to recognize what it's such a great way to get in touch with like what my values actually are and how they align with my wants and how destructive I feel. Like do I have moments of seeing someone who I am in so much envy of that I actually want like I want them just not to have it. I would rather this thing were destroyed. I mean, I have caught myself in that. That's a horrifying reality when my mature adult self comes
Yeah.
online and I'm like, "Oh, whoa, that is not the person I want to be. I
And
got
with
to sit myself down and give myself a talking to."
Yep. And with everything we've just said, what I hear there is that somebody shone a light on a part of your shadow you weren't ready to look at. And
Yeah.
you just want the light to stop. You
Yes,
don't
just
want to
make
see it anymore. Yep.
Oh, you nailed that. You nailed that metaphor. I if I if I could allow myself to be in the space of envying without getting destructive toward the other, without getting destructive toward the self. If I could mine it for the gold of, hey, there's want there, use it to either motivate me or to do some checks on, like, oh, is this actually in alignment with my values? And does it fit into this one wild and precious life that I have? Does it fit? Because there are some things that I envy that I'm like, yeah, I chose to start having a family when I was 22. And I have this big family, and I am busy doing a bunch of things that mean other things haven't always been possible. Like I've had to make choices. There's a maturity that comes in when the envy comes up and I'm envying someone else's life, and I find myself like, woo, right. It's not just metamors who are incommensurable. It's every person's life. Like we're just leading entirely different existences and experiences. And that, like for me, that's the work of wow, really reckoning with, oh, so I am meeting my shadow, like you just said. I am meeting my shadow. I am meeting the unlived life, which also allows me to recollect my unlived life rather than project it all over
Hmm.
convenient places like my children. Like
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Jung was very famous for saying there is nothing worse for a child than the unlived life of the parents. Um,
Sorry, kids.
recollecting those projections, like that's
Yeah.
the work.
Yep.
That's the big work. This is so when we say, you know, this is a show about non-monogamy, it absolutely is. And it is a show about non-monogamy as a path of individuation. And also, everything we're doing is potential individuation material if you take it deeply enough. Envy is incredibly damaging. I see it damage people, not just in partnership or in dating or in polycules, but also in broader non-monogamy communities because envy can create these cliques and this in-group, out-group. It can really foster
It can, yeah,
a
can
lot of
foster
destructive.
negative action, like anti-relational action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to admit when we're feeling envious. In part, I think, because we have forgotten to name that when I long to be what someone is or have what they have, that's me envying. Own it. Look right at it. And when I catch myself with a bitter look on my face, when I catch
Yeah.
myself trying to diminish or trying to say how unfair it is, can I be with that? Like, ooh, separate from the fair or unfair, I'm an envy. I am experiencing envy. What am I going to do with that? Separate from the whatever's going on in their life. I just had an emotional experience. What do I want to do with it? Envy is a beautiful indicator.
And this links to the drama triangle. Like, so I'm hearing you describe that. It's like, okay, I'm having this feeling, and there's this. I could go a couple of ways with it. I could go towards the destructive, anti-relational side, where I'm like, I need to like this can't stand. I need to stop it. I need to destroy. I need to break things. Or I can say, hey, wait, I want, okay, let me see what I can do to make things different for me to get what I want, versus making things different for someone else to prevent me having to look at it.
Right. And
So I
that
turn it
is
over from sort of this victim to creator.
creator
I
energy.
could take my own actions.
Yeah. Yeah. We haven't done an episode on the drama triangle, have
I
we?
think it's time.
Okay. We'll put that on the docket.
Yeah.
I drama triangle is I mean, it's old. It's been out there since the 60s.
Oh, it's
It's
so
Stephen
valuable.
Karpman's work. But it's simple. It's an easy heuristic to use to remember how to get yourself the hell out of victim mentality, which you're right. Envy puts us into a victim mentality, which is unhelpful. So, yeah, put that on the list. Thanks, Ken. This was a great conversation.
Thank you.
We talk to you all the time. It is absolutely imperative to me that we get to hear from you as well.
Yes, please.
So, we'd love to invite you to join us. Join Ken and I. We're holding monthly Ask Me Anythings. You can show up, bring your questions from podcast episodes, from your relationships, bring questions about non-monogamy, about individuation, about relationship skills. We would love to share space with you. We're hosting these AMAs free of charge for our podcast listeners. You are the Playing with Fire community, and it matters a ton to us that we connect with you directly. So
Oh,
go,
I would so love to hear your questions, and it'd be so awesome.
yeah. Go to joliehamilton.com/AMA and you'll find a way to sign up real quick and get an invitation to join us in a small group where we're going to get together and talk about all things non monogamy, individuation, and relationships.